Greetings, gods and goddesses in training. Welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara, all relations. Today we're talking all about how flow state is the new renaissance, okay? Now, why do I make such a bold claim? Because I've studied this state my entire life, okay? From the times I was a child, I didn't know what it was called, this state. But when I grew older and I went into my master's program studying applied positive psychology and coaching psychology, I delved into this state called flow. Now, flow state isn't some kind of productivity porn. It is actually Renaissance reborn. Think about it. Back in the time when there were polymaths like Da Vinci, painting, dissecting, inventing machines, sketching helicopters, centuries ahead of time. Today, the modern day Da Vinci isn't necessarily sitting in Florence. He could be a coder in San Francisco. He could be a DJ in Berlin. He could be a mystic in Kolkata. He could be a biotech tinkerer out in Shenzhen. But the shared catalyst of all these individuals is the flow state. Peak performance. Optimal experience. Being so wired and locked in on something that you forget who you are, what you're doing. You're just in it. You're in the zone. You're not overthinking it because there's no inner critic to interrupt you anymore because you're so in it. The Renaissance was a cultural ignition point where art, science, and spirit got braided together into a firestorm of human potential. Flow is democratized today. You don't need the papal patronage or the Medici gold nowadays to tap into the zone. You need a mind that knows how to switch into this timeless state of presence, pure and deep presence. It's a zone where your hands move before thought, right? And when your body naturally moves and it feels so effortless, right? And you just kind of follow along with it, like the body knows what to do in order to make you heal. But here you are trying to micromanage this workout, right, through your mind. When the body just needs to know that this is how I want to feel. This is the intention I'm going to give it. Please help me in this, right? So before you roll out your yoga mat, always give yourself an intention. Today I want to release anger. Today I want to, breathe deeper into my belly. Today I wish to handle this problem at work today. So give yourself an intention before you roll out your mat. That is one thing that I would highly recommend, because you're here to plug into the universal current and create something that outlives you. That is essentially the beauty of flow. This isn't necessarily about individual peak performance. I'm talking about flow state more as a cultural infrastructure. So of course the Renaissance had like guilds, secret orders, and we have the Primal Sutra mystery school. If the Renaissance was about discovering the light of the ancients, this one's about embodying that light within ourselves. Now, how does this work? I'm not talking about flow state as just a temporary state. It's kind of like a one-time burst of inspiration and then it's done. But I'm talking about it from a culture of embodied belief we all have. Back in the Renaissance, these painters, these prolific writers, scientists, mystics, you name it, they believed they were touching the divine or God through the geometry, the colors, and through invention. So that belief became second nature, correct? It wasn't maybe I'm inspired. It was just normal for them to see divinity in perspective, in anatomy and mathematics. Belief was their OS that created those amazing cathedrals you see today. The different symphonies or like breakthroughs that they introduced to the world. Now, the same mechanics you can apply to flow state by changing your belief. Because you can't enter flow state by straining yourself, just like you can't force a belief by clenching your fists. Flow, like belief, is effortless once it is installed. You don't try to be the Renaissance human, you just normalize genius until it's just who you are. You rehearse the thought, I'm creative, I'm tapped into source. I'm creative, I'm tapped into source. I'm creative, tapped into source. If you live from this, you will stop reacting to those old timelines. You're not reacting to old limitations. So this is how flow hardwires itself into the nervous system, through rehearsal, through repetition. And when enough people live this way, we'll see flow state as ordinary, walking from new realities instead of moving towards them. That's when we get this collective ignition firing together. That's why I say flow state is the renaissance, because belief is the portal, flow is the current, and the culture that we have is the cathedral that we build from it. Flow transcends discomfort by belief in action. So let's say when Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel, he was acting from a new reality. I'm gonna keep this cathedral alive by showing Adam touching hands with God. I mean, if he had a different intention or a frame or a belief in mind, right? If he was struggling with his own doubts and insecurities, and, you know, he was worried about what the critics would say, he was worried about, you know, the pain that he would have to go through in this arduous art piece, right? Listen, if he focused on all of those things, it would completely slow down his progress. But he was so overtaken by this inspiration, by this power. He was channeling divine power as he was painting, right? So really start to understand this, guys. This is how flow state takes us over and starts channeling us, right? Through these different experiences. Also in the Renaissance, of course, there were alchemists. They believe inner transformation equals the outer gold. And flow state is actually the same, because when you shift your nervous system into this effortless absorption state, your results just start to follow and flow. New art comes out, new science, you create some new music, and they appear as if by alchemy, right? But you're generating novelty and newness, this kind of freshness feeling. And that's really how to meditate properly and stay in this deep presence. If you imagine in this moment right now, you were born for the first time, right? You did not have any other memory besides this video, right? You came to the world just now, right? And you saw me speaking. It would completely change your experience of watching this video, right? Because right now you're watching with all these preconceptions like, oh yeah, I know this, yeah, that could be possible, but how's this gonna help me? You wanna rush to the end of the video, right? There are all these thoughts happening. So right now, if you just put this mentality into anything that you do, right? Then listen, I'm a blank slate right now. Let me just be in the moment and see what happens, right? Let me be in the moment and see what emerges and happens, actually. I'm excited about this, okay? Now, I'm not saying just be a passive wreck, right? Just sitting in a corner, not doing anything, feeling guilty about not doing anything, and then running in circles, right? Being busy for the sake of being busy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying ride on the beams of light in your imagination like Einstein. I mean, that's what he did years before relativity was formalized. So step into the environment of your vision and look from it. Feel it as real. You see, Einstein was already living in relativity before the math and science caught up. Think about people who are like video game speedrunners, right? And they're just going through the levels. How are they able to do it so fast? With practice, with time, right? They keep doing it so much that their fingers just now move on autopilot. How is it that in a freestyle rap cipher, one person can have a specific rhythm and a flow and then pass it on to someone else, and then they can keep that flow going? So this is actually crafting belief in the moment so that words can bend the time, right? Because when you're in a rap cipher, time slows down and distills into the musical pace and the rhythm that you are generating, right? Maybe someone's beatboxing, maybe there's an instrumental, you got to stay in that pocket. So similarly, what if you were to just work and play a specific lo-fi music or something in the background that keeps you in a very specific rhythm? Okay, and then you start expressing yourself. Maybe you start singing or rapping or dancing around or doing something or taking notes, right? Practicing getting into these immersive states much more readily, effortlessly. I mean, look at Dragon Ball Z's hyperbolic time chamber, right? Belief plus intensity plus flow equals compressed mastery. And belief is what pulls you back into the boss fight, because listen, guys, this is why this is important, okay? A lot of people in the flow state communities, they'll tell you about the challenge skills ratio, okay? But what they won't tell you is that it's a perceived challenge and a perceived skill. So it actually has everything to do with your beliefs. So let's say you're really skilled at, I don't know, tennis or something like this, okay? You're very skilled at tennis, but you don't believe that you're skilled. How are you going to be a good tennis player? Now, what if you're an awful tennis player, but you believe that you're one of the greatest? you are still going to improve, and you're going to carry this vitality, this confidence, which creates competence within you, right? And you're actually going to start winning games. But if you're kind of like creating this pity party mindset for yourself, look at all of these other, tennis players and how they've trained for so many years, and look at me, I'm not getting the scholarship, you're focusing on all the things that aren't there, which is again reinforcing that belief, right? So we are belief reinforcers. We have to actually activate our beliefs each day, okay? Instead of just sitting back and letting the world happen, right? The Renaissance was so cool because there was things happening, art, music, cultural movements emerging, right? Everyone thought that the world was the center, right? The earth was the center. Galileo looked through a telescope and he installed a new belief by looking through glass at different planets. And his flow state of seeing that helped him to rewrite the dogma, because he was already living in that reality. Okay? In Florence, a lot of the artists during the Renaissance, what they would do is they would cross-pollinate ideas, right? So just because, I have all this interest in spirituality doesn't mean that I only have to stay in this realm. I can study a little bit of trading, I can study a little bit of mechanics, all these other things that actually give life force and vitality to my life and enrichment to my life, right? It's not just, I'm this career, I must do only the things that this career allows. Then you're limiting yourself. But if you're like, I can read a book on painting, and I'm not even a good painter, but I'm gonna read it and learn something new from that field, and then cross-pollinate, take that and then merge it with something else, right? Finding the overlaps. And this is something magical that you can be able to do, just like Bruce Lee back there has been able to do, is, fight all these martial artists from around the world with these different styles, and then stay and stick to his own style, which then became its own movement, right? Jeet Kune Do. So flow state works in this similar way, in that the more absorbed you are in your process, you transmute the inner chaos into outer breakthroughs. Take something like Shakespearean live theater, right? I went to the Globe Theater, right? When I went on my London trip years ago for my high school. Back in those days, people left those theaters changed, right? Absolutely transformed. Same as today's concerts or raves, right? To that extent. Now think about the golden mean and the Vitruvian geometry, right? Things like this. Well, flow feels timeless because it's literally locking into those same harmonic ratios as the golden ratio. That means the Renaissance hacked flow state into the stone. Gutenberg's press wasn't just a couple of books, right? It unleashed a torrent of ideas across Europe, because flow thrives when information circulates. So this press was like the internet's Renaissance ancestor, right? And many, Renaissance creators were mocked, ridiculed, jailed, censored, okay? What we're seeing nowadays. Just like the teaching, only the old reality tests you. Do you fold, or do you act from the vision as if it's already true, right? So this is a biochemical flow state frame control that you gotta maintain with yourself, okay? What I mean by that is you gotta really understand what you bring to the table. Okay, you have talent, skills, abilities, genius that only you can access, because you have a unique life experience. And so why not embrace that uniqueness and put it out there for people to find value and enrichment through your own process? Because you've been through this process before, you can then inspire others who've been in a similar process to you. I went from a very weak, shy, kind of lazy, not intimidating at all kind of guy, right? Like I was sort of invisible until I chose, I'm going to be a performer. I'm going to be a sage entertainer. I'm going to put myself on stage. I'm going to rap. I'm going to express myself, right? And show myself and fade away this weird egoic construct of, he's the theater guy. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. And break out of those shackles and paradigms to create my own character and embrace this whole journey of peak performance mastery and shamanism to become a pioneer in my own field, right? To be the bridge that takes people to transcendent states and willingly, make their spiritual awakenings a little less, chaotic, okay, hopefully. So last night I had also exercised at gym. Thank you very much. Okay, have an incredible rest of your day, guys. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day, and let's get it today. Okay, upward spiral gang. May we never be the same again. Let's go, upward spiral. Let's win.